But anyway, welcome to today's webinar. I'm Lilia from Territory 3, and we help support Kiwi founders who are going global. And one of the ways we do that is by having this webinar series where nearly every week we have a different guest speaker, either a founder sharing their story or an industry expert in a certain area, kind of sharing some insights that can help you out with your startup journey. And today I'm very excited. We've got Asa Cox, who is the founder of Arcanum,
Arcanum, whatever. Yep.
Arcanum, yep, which is all to do about AI and machine learning. So I'd love to just pass over to you to do a bit of background. I know you're not originally from New Zealand, so can you tell us a bit of a background on where you're from and how you got here?
Yeah, no, thanks, Leah, and great to be here. Thanks everyone for jumping on. Some familiar names in the participants. So for those who I know, hello. For those I don't, I look forward to getting to know you. So yeah, I've been in New Zealand 8.5 years now. I'm English originally. The normal Kiwi wife kind of secret secondment of foreigners back to New Zealand. So we met in the UK. At the time, I was in the pharmaceutical industry. So my background is data, but I'm not a coder. I'm not technical in that way. So I was in the pharmaceutical licensing and business development. I set up a data platform in 2008, kind of a subscription data kind of platform. And so that got me a little bit closer to tech, where I needed to at least understand what the techies were doing. And I got a little bit of funding for that when we moved to Canada. So in 2010, moved to Canada, southern Ontario, and built out this data platform into a kind of consulting practice, which is what I thought I wanted to do. I thought it was a bit more glamorous, kind of doing PowerPoint presentations around the world, but it turned out not to be glamorous at all. A lot of PowerPoints that never did anything. And so when we decided to move to New Zealand, after we had our first child in Canada, and that's when I kind of decided I wanted to pivot my career to be more tech focused. And so I didn't know anybody apart from my wife's family, and they're like teachers and tradies, so they weren't useful in my tech kind of world. So I literally started a new LinkedIn profile and started having coffees in Wellington, which is easy to do. Everyone's keen on a coffee. And if you've got something interesting to talk about, you can normally get to anybody, which is really refreshing compared to other countries where you've got to go through layers of either secretaries or bureaucracy or whatever it is. Whereas in New Zealand, you can pretty much get to anybody you want with a couple of emails or at least the offer of a coffee or a beer. And so I just started talking about machine learning and AI. And then one thing led to another. Here we are.
Cool, amazing. I 100% agree with that. New Zealand compared to the States, everyone is approachable here. Yeah. It's so much easier, so much more. We're all kind of on that same playing field, it feels, which I do love.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there is that open-mindedness to have the conversations. On the other side, I would say, is people are very quick to have a conversation. And then compared to other countries, it's kind of slow to get to a decision to do something. So that's the other side, right? Is you get very excited real quick, and then you get frustrated when it gets a bit more slow to get decisions made. But that's the rub, I guess, when you come to New Zealand.
No, that's good. Still love it here, absolutely. And just for people who are watching who aren't familiar, can you give us a rundown on what is AI and machine learning?
Sure. Yeah, that's a whole webinar in itself. Happy to send some links around where we go a bit deeper on that. But yeah, for me, it's when machines can do something better than humans, right? And that's a very broad remit. But either there's too much data for the human brain to effectively process. And so the big data part of machine learning, where you're spotting patterns in the data. And so that could be, for example, your customer databases could be huge. You've got lists of interactions, you've got what they bought over years, how much they bought it for, maybe you had a special offer related to it, an advertising campaign, whatever. You've got a huge amount of data, and to get humans to be able to process that is hard to generate those insights. But then if you also want to do it in like near real time, say somebody then calls your contact center and you want to be able to present them with, this is the next best thing to sell. That's a lot of information processed in a very short amount of time that you then need to make available to somebody to make a decision. So that's where kind of AI comes in. And then you've got other areas where it's not good for humans to do it. So very repetitive tasks. You don't really want the human brains to be doing that. So taking information from invoices and putting them into a database, you don't really want somebody reading it, copying and pasting. That's not good use of the human capacity. And then you've got things where it's kind of literally impossible for humans to do. So if you've got some of the early work we did for MPI was looking forward into what would the solution be if they had cameras on every fishing boat. How would you be able to identify when they caught something that they weren't supposed to catch? And so the human approach is have one person watching every video 24/7. Not really that smart. Or you can start applying AI to know what normal looks like and what abnormal looks like, and then start showing the clips of the video where something bad happens or something that unexpected happens. So AI ML, where humans shouldn't be doing it, where they can't do it, or whether they can't do it fast enough. And so they're the kind of remits that we're going to look at.
Cool, awesome. Hopefully everyone has a bit of an understanding now of what AI and machine learning is. If not, there is a ton of information on the internet as well. So in terms of founding your company, how did that go about? And, you know, did you form a team? Did you raise capital? So
it was definitely quite a journey. So as I said, I kind of started having conversations with people pretty early on. And that was pretty challenging because it was this was 6-7 years ago. And so when you start talking about AI, people basically defaulted to, are you talking about the Terminator? So that was all really people kind of knew. So there wasn't really in New Zealand a business context for AI. So really you were starting to talk about what AI actually was and how it could be applied to business. And so we started with a lot of workshops and webinars kind of talking about how to apply AI in a business context, because that just wasn't really talked about in New Zealand. And then there weren't really any examples either. So coming from North America, Amazon by that point were already kind of doing recommendations. So you bought this, you might also want to buy this, or people like you liked this book, you might like it. Trade Me at the time, because we spoke to them, didn't even know when you opened their emails. So like it was so there wasn't an example of AI in action. So we were really dealing with, on one hand, it was very exciting. It was a big blue ocean of conversation. On the other hand, it was people didn't even know what the blue ocean was. They were like, what's the sea? So it was really in this education process. And so we did quite a lot of executive workshops and seminars, which was really at the time me Googling what they should have been Googling, but either couldn't be bothered, didn't have the time to do it, presenting back what was possible. And it was really about the art of the possible. And so when we were doing some of those, it gave us some early opportunities to present into mainly around GovTech, actually. So there was some GovTech kind of accelerators and incubators that had kind of meetups going on. And so we got invited to present, or got invited to present to one of those. And that's where we got picked up by MPI to do some research, the New Zealand Police Innovation Centre, which people probably don't even know exists, down by the basin, and then also Ministry of Education. And so at that point, then I went to Vic Uni and went and found some master's students and some PhDs, and started then kind of doing some of that work. And then we kind of built a team around that. We got some work out of TransPower, which is our first kind of big paid piece of work to deliver a solution. And off the back of that, then we were able to raise some kind of pre-seed money to build out the team and start working towards building out product and platform. And since then, we've done a couple of other kind of seed rounds. We're just doing one now. And so it's kind of been the journey of finding what the market wants, what we can build, and how we monetize it. What are the business models? And in emerging technology in New Zealand, that's a bit tough. But it's we've got plenty of scars and stories that mean now we know a lot more than most people do in this space.
Awesome. Could you run us through an example of what you have done for one of these
Sure.
clients, and how does that work? They give you what they want to achieve, and then you kind of, figure that out?
Yeah, so if I go back to some of the early stuff, and you'll see the kind of difference over the years. So the work that we were doing with TransPower, they were beginning to look at smart asset management or intelligent asset management. TransPower is like the backbone of the electricity system here. They have aging assets, and they need to prioritize where to invest in those assets, and also how to schedule the maintenance of those assets. And so a lot of their assets are power lines. That's the kind of hardcore part of their business. And so what they had always done was fly helicopters along those power lines and have humans hang out the side to see where there might be damage. And they were beginning to realize that wasn't really very safe or very sustainable. And so they were beginning to look at drones to do that, to capture the video footage. And so what they wanted us to do, which is what we built for them, was a computer vision program that processed the videos and identified the frames where there was damage on the power lines, and then classify the damage, because there's lightning strikes, there's bulging, there's all sorts of technical ways in which they assess the damage. And so the computer vision was able to find the frame, identify it, and classify it, which kind of then helped them move towards less humans being exposed to hanging up helicopters, but also a much more kind of scalable solution once they got the drones kind of doing it. The challenge was, in a big organization like that, those kind of projects sit in like the innovation bucket. And so we delivered that under the auspices of innovation, but it never made it into production. So it was kind of part of this journey of their transformation, modernization, intelligence type stuff. But like many organizations, they then had a reorg. They needed a data strategy, which took 2 years. And so when we came back to them 3 years later to say, hey, what should we do with this stuff? They said, oh, we lost the code. We don't actually know where all the stuff that you built for us is. And so that's not untypical, right? We had a similar journey with New Zealand Police. A couple of years later, we were involved in the digital police officer project. So they had Soul Machines built this beautiful, digital police officer. Can't remember her name now. Can't remember. And we built the natural language engine behind that. So then you could have very natural conversations, not like a chatbot on a website where they're like, sorry, I don't understand. Can you ask me one of these 6 questions that I know how to answer? They wanted to have something which was a lot more interactive, have a bit more personality, really fun project. And so we delivered that, and the hope was that it would enable the police to go into places that they wouldn't normally be able to be. So libraries, post offices, whatever. It was really targeted on increasing the accessibility of the police to the public, especially under circumstances where there was violence or domestic abuse and so on, where you couldn't go into a police station because you'd get followed and whatever else. And so it was really exciting, had quite a exciting future. But then there was a change at the top level. They decided they wanted to have more humans instead of more technology, and the whole program got stopped, which is a great waste of taxpayer money. But again, that's what kind of happens. Yeah. But what we found in both of those projects was, because the organization didn't have the technical ability to integrate what we had built with their existing software, that barrier was really, really tough for people. And so things got kind of stopped. And then there was this barrier of, I won't say incompetency, just a lack of competency to be able to actually get it integrated into an existing piece of software. And so that's what we raised money for, was to build the platform that had made that super easy to happen. So we built the platform to automate the gap or the engineering between the data science with the PhDs and the eggheads that are doing all the real smart stuff, and the software developers who wanted to just do what they were used to doing. So integrating APIs and all that kind of stuff. And so we built the platform to be able to do that. And so now the kind of projects we're working on are always focused on stuff which actually gets into BAU and is actually just part of somebody's existing kind of ways of working. So now we focus quite often in workflows with lots of documents, because documents are not so easy to deal with compared to databases. Most of the tooling is quite different. And so, for example, now we work with insure tech companies who want to extract lots of information from insurance policies. We're working with some local councils to semi-automate the official information request process. So lots of searching across lots of different systems, which is really painful and stupid for humans to be doing, and using technology to kind of help speed up that process. So that's how far kind of machine learning has come over the lifetime of Arcanum. Is it's moved from data science PhDs, what magic do you think you can create, to how do we make the existing processes that are run by humans, how do you make them faster, better, cheaper, more efficient, and so on.
Awesome. And I mean, I feel like the possibilities in that space are pretty endless. There's so many things out there that can be automated, can be improved. One in particular, I would love for the whole airport process to be sped up. Gosh. But in terms of the startup space in New Zealand, are there any startups doing things in AI machine learning that you notice that are that are pretty awesome that people should know about?
Yeah, for sure. So I think they're called Heart Lab, one group up in Auckland who are really helping with the radiology kind of space, helping people who have got medical images of hearts, which are now kind of videos or kind of GIFs of kind of heart, and so they're using AI to really help the medical profession learn more about the heart, which is super cool. You've got stuff going on in the ag tech fields, organizations like Cropsy, and there's a whole bunch coming out of the Sprout Accelerator over in the Wairarapa. You've got people doing like Soul Machines, for example. They're doing amazing AI stuff with kind of digital faces, same as Unique. So there's a whole bunch of really cool kind of stuff going on in New Zealand, because there is actually quite a strong AI academic environment. So both Vic and Auckland AUT, then there's a Hamilton, a Waikato AI Institute. So there's actually quite a lot of AI capability here, off the back of the fact that the data science language R was actually invented in New Zealand. It actually came from New Zealand, as invented by an academic out of Auckland. So we've had a very strong data science capability here for many years, and that's attracted now more AI academics. But there has been a challenge of moving it from academia into business. We're not as mature as countries like the US or Canada, who have a very close alignment between academic and industry. So that's beginning to change now, but most of the time it's actually the academics have to leave when they finish their PhDs and go and either start their own company, which is really scary for a PhD, or they have to go and join another company that needs their capabilities. And so we're beginning to see a bit more of that, but there's still a lot of wasted talent in New Zealand that ends up going to be a database analyst when they've got a PhD in machine learning. That makes me sad.
Yeah, I noticed I've seen a couple of startups in that AgriCheck space where it's like you scan something, kind of scans the fruit, and it can tell you, is this fruit rotten or is there something wrong, and then that kind of makes the whole process of getting the good fruit out there a lot faster, a lot easier. Yeah,
there's quite a bit in that quality control. So there's awesome company up in Tauranga, Robotics Plus, that do a lot of that kind of stuff. There's amazing work done by plant and food research. There's a ton of kiwi fruit kind of stuff going on, both robotics, computer vision, sensors in the ground to know exactly how many nutrients each plant needs. It's like, there's some super cool stuff. One of the sad things is that the business world, or New Zealand generally, doesn't tend to hear about a lot of these companies. I don't know whether it's the stereotypical tall poppy kind of syndrome, or it's a lack of interest in tech more broadly in the business media. I don't know, but there's a lot of really cool companies here that nobody's ever heard of.
Good point. Well, if anyone watching knows the media, go send them their way.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just looking back at the questions that I had here. Oh, something else that you've been involved in called Play in the Grey, which is on your LinkedIn. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when we were doing the stuff for TransPower and for others at the time in MPI, we were approached by New Zealand Rugby to see whether we could apply some computer vision to games of rugby. And so it was with the performance analyst team, and they were like, okay, the World Cup's coming up in Japan, so this was 2019. We want to see whether we can learn about our opposition from their videos without having an analyst watch every video and mark everything down. Can we use AI to do that? And so we built a prototype that allowed them to collect a lot of data from those games. So like you see, and if you watch Game of Rugby, they have the little things in the back of their jerseys, which is for GPS tracking, but it's not very reliable, and you don't get the information on your opposition, obviously, because they don't share that data. So we generated like GPS-like data straight from video that they had, and then they were able to get insights from what the opposition might do. And so that we launched as a product called Play in the Grey. It's a joint venture with another Wellington company called Dot Loves Data, who had some expertise in rugby and also cricket and other sports. And so we launched that with New Zealand Rugby and AWS in Las Vegas at the reInvent conference in 2019. So it was actually just after the World Cup. And so we built a business in sport around that. So now we do a lot of automated highlight creation for cricket. So we're just about to do some work with Australia cricket, hopefully, and done a lot of work in American football, college American football. So yeah, we've applied this AI capability to analyzing videos across multiple sports. Yeah, it's super fun.
Oh, awesome! Sounds like a fun space to be in. Who inspires you most in this space?
Yeah, I think it's really the big thinkers, but not in terms of that academic level, but actually doing it in the real world, dealing with really hard problems. So in some respects, some of the predictable ones like SpaceX and Tesla, because what they're doing is absolutely incredible in terms of dealing with massively challenging problems, doing never done before things with literally like lives on the line and millions of dollars. It's not stuff which is just being developed in a laboratory somewhere with databases and trying to get better and better accuracy of machine learning algorithms. This is like real world stuff. So that's super inspiring. And then there's also ones that are really doing it again in the real world. So, many of us use, Google and Gmail, and just seeing that evolution over time of, predicting what we should write, which is really useful. The kind of complete my sentence for me is I use on a daily basis. I now send text messages, but doing voice transcription, that's just by habit now because it's so incredibly accurate. So that's amazing. And then you see some of the things that are happening in the kind of conservation and sustainability space. So I know there's a lot of investment going into that, from satellite imagery, being able to understand where poaching and pirating is kind of going on one level, to others looking at wildfire prevention using AI. So there's a ton of really awesome use cases. But I think it's really those that are pushing the envelope of the real world application, which is super inspiring. And so we do have some of that in New Zealand, but there's a lot of it going on all around the world. And seeing Justin's on the list, I know there's the AI conference that he's running next year. So really looking forward to seeing more of those get promoted and surfaced, because there's a lot of really inspiring stories and a lot of demonstrations of what's possible, which hopefully more and more people get to hear about and get inspired by.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone's watching, check out the AI conference next year. Does it have a
I think if he's still sticking around, he'll be able to put maybe post the link to the event in the chat.
Yeah. and Q&A, and then I can read it out. Off the back of that, is there like a dream project that you would love to work on at some point?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I very much love sport, so I'm kind of doing a lot of that stuff already, which is really cool. So that's, already really happy with that. But we really see that there's a whole opportunity in that sustainability space. So I'm really keen for us to continue to evolve our technology so it can be applied into sustainability initiatives. So being able to reduce carbon footprint, help with the measurement and the reporting of ESG. So we're beginning to talk to a few organizations about that. And I think being able to combine the technology with a positive environmental impact, they're the kind of projects that are really keen for us to work on. And then I think, in terms of, I'd love to do work with organizations like Virgin as an aspiration. Richard Branson's, has been a hero of mine from when I was pretty young. So I'd love to work with some of those really awesome organizations and help them achieve better outcomes, which again is very impact focused as well.
Cool. Just quickly, Justin just told us the conference is AI23.live.
Nice.
I've chucked that into the chat because I guess Zoom lets me use the chat today. But awesome, thanks for that. Yeah, that is pretty awesome to hear. I think Virgin would be a really cool company to work with at some point. In terms of, let's say for people watching, they've got a startup, they haven't gone into the AI machine learning space at all, but they're wanting to explore it. What are the first things that they should do to kind of look into that?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time kind of guiding people on how to get on the AI ML journey, because it is a journey. You can't just plug AI in and it magically kind of happens and works. So people do need to appreciate it is a bit of a journey. And so there are a number of ways that you can start. It's either at a kind of data level and going, we've got all of this data, what can we do with it? And so we do have a lot of people come to us and kind of start exploring it that way. So how do I get value from my customer data or from my app data or from my historical transactions, whatever it may be? And so there's ways that machine learning can kind of help start that journey by surfacing insights and patterns. You might be able to categorize customers in a different way. You may be able to come up with some new product ideas. You may be able to improve your user experience. And so there's a whole path of using your existing data. And then there's the other path, which is what problems you want to try and solve that AI ML might be able to solve. So maybe you want to grow revenue in a new sector, or you want to be able to increase engagement in some of your products. You may want to improve the customer experience in retail. So it's kind of like, what are the key drivers of the organization? If you're a startup, it's likely to be more product focused. So maybe you've got a SaaS platform, maybe you've got an app, maybe you've got whatever. It's kind of, okay, what do you think is going to move the needle for you? What's going to attract more customers? What's going to help you generate more revenue or introduce like a premium product? Is there a way that you can create a data offering that helps you get more embedded into the channel? So it's really like, what are the problems that you want to solve, or what are the opportunities that you think are big enough that a business case for investing into machine learning might make sense? And those investments don't need to be hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. You can get started, pretty quick and easy. That's where machine learning's got to now, is there's some pretty low cost access points to be able to start exploring that stuff. It doesn't have to be big and scary with lots of highly technical people involved and so on. So I think it's really asking yourself why. Back in the day, it used to be somebody somewhere told me we have to do AI, and we're trying to figure out what that means and how we do it. Whereas I think now it's people know that the art of the possible is as broad as you want to make it. And so it's now kind of why. What are you trying to achieve? Kind of more business fundamentals. So starting with the why, and then talking about the how, and getting on the journey. That's the kind of that's the advice that I'd give people.
Cool, awesome. And for your company, are you open to taking any new clients at the moment?
Yeah, always open to new clients. Always open to new clients. So we deal with companies of all different shapes and sizes. So we do have our platform now, which you can get to via our website, arcanum.ai, and then working with larger companies, we do have this whole discovery, planning, journey kind of process to really help people work through what do they want to achieve, why do they want to achieve it, what data do they have, what resources do they have, and what do they need, what should the multiple horizons kind of look at. So yeah, we work with organizations of all shapes and sizes mainly across now two areas. One, those kind of document intensive processes. So where you've got either documents or emails, support tickets, social media comments, contact center recordings, that whole unstructured kind of data area, which is probably 80% of most people's data is in some unstructured form. And then the other side is actually IoT. So we're doing more and more work with IoT companies who started off with collecting data, and a lot of data from these smart devices. And now they're on the journey to moving from data to information to insights to intelligence. And so on that continuum, machine learning plays a key part. And so we're working with more IoT companies who want to add value to their existing offering.
Cool. So if anyone interested, they can just jump on your site, have a go through that process of the discovery tools. Awesome. We've got a question here that's come through.
Sure.
How mature is AI in the voice space, especially in New Zealand? Does it have the capability to accurately capture voice sentiment analysis? Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely getting better. I know Google and I think now AWS have an Australian accent, which is obviously not quite the same. I appreciate that, but it's closer than the English and the American ones were. I think it may be AWS, which is working on a New Zealand accent, but it's all driven by demand. And obviously New Zealand's not the largest country in the world to kind of justify that kind of investment. But it's definitely getting better and better. I mean, I think if you test out the Google, if you've got an Android, the default kind of transcription is Google. So give that a go and see how well it transcribes your voice. And the same with the Amazon Echo devices. Again, if it understands your Kiwi accent, that's as far as technology has got. So that is now available to you to put into your software. It's not only in the Amazon Echo, and it's not only in an Android phone. Both of those services are available to you as a software product. So that's as good as it's got. I think in terms of transcription, which is that moving from voice to text, it's great in those short sentences, and it gets trained on you personally. But where you're dealing with, say, contact centers, where you've got different voices all the time, you actually still need quite a lot of training of the AI to get to a really good level of accuracy. So the benchmark is about 2,000 hours of audio that needs to be corrected by a human to get it to be accurate. You need 2,000 hours of transcribed footage before it gets to be really accurate. And that's just the way that the world is at the moment. In terms of sentiment, part of it's based on how accurate the transcription is. So most sentiment is still based on keywords. So you'd be able to highlight when somebody says, I am sad or I am angry. That's relatively easy to pull out. But if you're describing something in a way which a human would interpret as being angry or happy or joyful, that's definitely possible, but it's still down to the quality of the transcription. We actually have in our demo platform the capability to do that audio transcription and sentiment analysis. So Amit, you're more than happy to go and have a play with that and test out the kind of latest sentiment analysis that we have on the platform.
Talking about Yeah, transcribing. I noticed I started using a transcribing software to go through some of our old webinars, and the difference between how it captures American accents versus New Zealand accents. I look at what I've been saying and it's all jumbles. It's yeah, whereas it's so perfect for the American accents, so it's a bit of
yeah, it's just, you know, based on the size of the population, right, and how much data, how many Siri devices, how many Google Home devices, how many Echoes are in the market, and who's talking to them. Yeah, the AI needs to be trained. It can't just, it doesn't understand accents in terms of being able to interpret the difference between the American accent and your accent. As humans, we begin to tune in, you know, we translate in our brains when we hear different accents, and we begin to adapt pretty quickly. That just takes machines quite a lot of training. So it's definitely hard. I mean, English intonate in different ways, Americans intonate in different ways, Kiwis definitely like dropping vowels. So, you know, it's, the machines have to be trained to understand those differences.
Question here from John T. How do you best productionize machine learning models? What are the key steps and any tips?
Thanks for asking, John T. So yeah, we've built a whole platform on productionizing machine learning. It was one of the big challenges that I kind of mentioned earlier, where you've got the data scientists who are building these machine learning models in one type of tech, one type of code. So they work in things like what's called Jupyter notebooks and Python and all this kind of stuff. And you can't just give that to a software engineer who's going to productionize it. And productionizing really means making it available for use. So if you've got a software product that uses machine learning, it will normally be attached to a button, right, that does something. So the transcribe button or the upload button or the process button or the sentiment button. And so to make that button actually work and do the things that you want it to do, it needs to be productionized. So it needs to be able to run in the cloud or run in your server. It needs to be connected to your software. You've got to be able to bug fix it. You've got to be able to monitor it. You've got to be able to do all the things that you would do with regular software. But if you don't know anything about machine learning, it's a very different world. You can't just, it's not an easy thing for the current skills and resources to do. So that's what our platform does. It takes it from this data science world and makes it into an API that any software developer can then look after. And so that the key steps, unfortunately, are learning how to do all those expert things to take it from the world of data science into the world of software. Like us, there's other companies that offer AI as an API, but that still doesn't take away the challenges of actually being able to do things kind of at scale, have them looked after and monitored. So it's great for a prototype or a proof of concept, but when you want to actually do it at scale and do it kind of, you know, enterprise grade, then you really need to have an expert team to take that on, or work with somebody like us.
Awesome. Another question has come through from, sorry if I say this wrong, Adita. Where do you see the conversational AI space heading in terms of use of intelligent agents, and where do you see them being used beyond just interacting with them for short commands?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the technology's there. I think at the moment most of it is really down to the way that they've been, the expectations that they've kind of had when they've been designed. So at the moment they are quite basic, either Q&A kind of bots, or they're kind of quite basic transactional type stuff. I'm sure you've interacted with the Air New Zealand one, and it is a little frustrating still. I know, I think it was ASB had one that they've actually just pulled down because it wasn't, they weren't continuously investing in it to make it better and better. So they found customers stopped using it, and so therefore they pulled the pin, rather than going, what do customers want to be able to do with it, and kind of building it out as a product. So we're beginning to look at how do we use our capability around search and extraction and reporting and insights on this kind of sentiment to actually have those as functions and features of the conversational kind of AI to make them more and more useful. I think we need to move beyond the how do we replace the humans for these basic interactions to how do we actually empower the conversational AI to be more useful to us as a customer. So instead of just making it a cost out kind of exercise or a 24/7 support kind of use case, it's like, well, how do I ask it to transfer my credit from US dollars to New Zealand dollars so I can use it? All of the kind of stuff that we want to be able to do. It's a case of architecting it because the technology can do it. It just needs to be designed into the whole journey. And so there's a lot more that can be done. I really see a near-term future where we'll be able to send voice messages to our vendors, to whoever we're interacting with, instead of having to type stuff. Like, why can't we just use WhatsApp or Messenger or whatever and just send a voice message to the bot that can then take it on from there? It's like the technology's there. I think we've just got to have slightly bigger aspirations as to how we want to interact with these conversational AIs.
True. It's a lot of just getting these big companies on board to actually, put the time and effort and money into making these kind of things.
And to be fair, I mean, they go with the where is the broadest, easiest use case, right? So getting basic bots. I mean, there's still probably only 10% of websites probably have a useful bot. So they know they've still got a long way to go. But I think the consumer expectations get higher and higher as we get better interactions with, whether it be Spotify or whether it be Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever. Our expectations are accelerating beyond where most of the technologies are being applied in most businesses.
With some bots and websites, when they're no help, you kind of just to just keep going through the process until you can actually talk to a real person.
Yeah, like when you're on the phone, where it's like, how quickly can I get to a human? Because you just got so frustrated, and that's the problem. If you're having that experience, it's more negative than it is positive.
Definitely. A question here from Daniel. How important is it for startups in general to have an API strategy if a lot more services are being delivered in that format?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think if you're in a startup that's building a non-API first kind of strategy, you're kind of painting yourselves into a bit of a corner. I mean, many enterprises who are moving from those legacy monolithic environments are moving to APIs and microservices because you need to be able to continuously build out the software without having to shut it down or do these major releases and the whole agile kind of development kind of life cycle. So absolutely, I think there's a number of rationales for it. One being that agility and extensibility, but also integration. So we're about to add into our platform the ability to connect to 1,000 other software systems kind of out of the box. So that suddenly means that our users can connect their OneDrive to Slack with some smarts in the middle. And so we can only do that because we have an API first kind of strategy. So you've got to think about it not just in terms of your own product development and how can APIs be used to make it more manageable and less technical debt, but also what does that mean in terms of your channel partners, so your integrations with your customers or your vendors and that kind of stuff. So I think having that kind of mindset of API first really opens up a whole bunch of opportunities.
Awesome. We've got a couple more minutes left, so if anyone does have any other questions, now is the time to chuck those into the Q&A box.
Yeah, happy to answer any dumb or not so dumb questions. There's never a bad question.
Exactly. And we've got one that's just come through. Could AI help with the identification and discovery of process inefficiencies within an organization, especially for repetitive work, so the repetitive work can be converted into automation projects?
Yeah, it's not an application that we work on, but I know there are software companies focused on what's called robotic process automation, and so they now have bits of software that kind of go into an organization and look at all the logs. So when we're using software, every keystroke generates a log in the back end of the application. And so these softwares kind of go into the back ends of the software to see when repetitive tasks are being done, that could be automated. So absolutely, I think that's going to become a big part of process automation, is when we don't have to sit down human to human and go, okay, so what do you do and how do you do it? Let the machines identify what could be automated. I think that's definitely something which is now possible. I don't know the maturity of the tech, but certainly it's a big part of robotic process automation.
Oh, awesome. No other questions have come through yet, so I might wrap it up. Oh, wait, just as I say that, here we go. A question here. We had a forum last night with teachers and students and discussed how technology can provide relevant feedback to students on their essays in real time. We do it, but it needs to be more granular. Can you see a time when teacher feedback, maybe there wasn't enough character space in the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the education space is super interesting. I've got 4 young kids, and so trying to I can see a future where I won't be able to help all of them with their homework. One, because I don't know enough, but also there's only so much time in the day. But also I've got friends who are teachers, and they do talk about the challenges of providing sufficient time for each student to be able to give them feedback in the classroom. I mean, it's just impossible to give the right time and attention to each student in the classroom that you have. And so technology can definitely play a role in that. I mean, kids of all ages now are using devices to learn, so there's a huge opportunity to personalize education. So if you're going to imagine Spotify but for education, like recommendations of, you seem to have struggled with this task, we would now recommend you do this, or you smash this one, so how about you do this? Or if you buddy up with Bobby in the corner, you'll be able to help solve this problem together. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for data-driven education. But coming back to the specific question around that feedback, absolutely. So some of you may have worked with a product, now I can't remember what it's called, where it kind of gives you automatic feedback on your language. So when you're typing something in, it kind of gives you some automatic feedback. Grammarly, that's right, I was just checking on my computer. So it's called Grammarly. So that helps you improve not just the grammar, but also the structure of your sentences. And so we've started looking at that same technology to give feedback on job descriptions for disabled access. So if you have a standard job description, it isn't going to be readable by some of those with potentially mental impairment or kind of some disability. So using that same technology, somebody would be writing a job description and would say, that's not the right language to use if you want to make it more accessible. So I think being able to get to feedback to students as they're building an essay, either to guide them to improve it or just to replicate the teacher's comments kind of once they finished. Both of those things are absolutely now within the realms of possibility, especially because for decades teachers have been given feedback on essays. So for the AI, there's a huge amount of training data that says this stuff equals this positive or negative comment. So therefore, you can kind of create that advice using the AI. So yeah, that's absolutely possible.
True, yeah, endless opportunities in that space as well. And honestly, I just think the whole AI and machine learning is it is so exciting. It's like you don't know what the future could hold, and there's just so many opportunities. So I do hope that a lot more companies do kind of jump into that space, make use of people like you to help them out. And just very exciting to see what comes next. I can see also you're very passionate about it, which is...
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of love it, and part of that is because my background is in kind of business development, so I'm always thinking about opportunities. And my role really for the company and in the ecosystem is as the translator, right? The translator of what's possible with how to do it. And so for me, I'm super excited about anybody that's got an idea. I'm more than happy to sit down with them to kind of talk it through, because as you said, it really is it's a technology that could be so meaningful in so many different ways. education, health, the environment, the economy. There's just so many opportunities, and the passion comes through partly in frustration that why aren't more people already doing it, but also because I genuinely believe New Zealand has an opportunity to have an advantage and get a meaningful impact, on people's everyday lives. So absolutely, I'd be super keen to talk to anybody. It's what I love to do every day.
Amazing. And you are currently based in Wellington.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we've got a team of 13 in Wellington, a couple in Christchurch. But yeah, I travel up to Auckland every couple of weeks and around the country. So yeah, wherever anybody is. I mean, now we have Zoom and others. So yeah, kind of happy to talk to anybody anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world at the moment.
Amazing. Awesome. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. So you do also work with AWS. Now AWS is also a sponsor of Territory 3, so I should point out, if anyone is interested in joining their Activate program that offers them you $10,000 worth of credits, as well as business support, just flick me an email or a message afterwards if you are interested in that, and I can send you over the org code. But yeah, what do you do in terms of with AWS?
Yeah, so we do tons. So we're their leading partner for AI ML. We've been working with them for probably 4 years now. They've helped us get to global status. So we're one of 8 companies in the region that has the Accelerate status within AWS. So we work with them really closely. So in our platform, we embed a lot of the AWS technologies and make them easy for people to consume. So AWS has this wonderful list of capabilities, but Lego bricks, but unless you're a Lego master, you don't really know how to put them all together. And so our platform and our processes help that to happen. So yeah, we work with them on a global level for some of their technologies, and we work with a vast majority of their customers in New Zealand. So yeah, we're super happy to be partnered with them. We also work with them on people coming through the Jumpstart programs. I think officially we're a Jumpstart partner, so people can actually get access to some of those benefits by working with us. So yeah, they're super supportive, and the whole team and the startups are really, really great to work with.
Awesome. And just also a quick shout out to our other sponsors, which I should have done at the start. NZ Trade and Enterprise, BNZ, Evander Management, Jasmine Holdings, and K1W1 who help make this. I don't believe there's any other questions. Oh, wait.
There's a couple. Yeah, I'll try and whip through them in the few minutes we've got left. So natural language processing for an augmented reality as part of tourism sustainability. Cool. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That sounds really cool. Yeah, I think anything, and that's kind of connected to Daniel's question about exportable. Absolutely. I mean, there's some really interesting areas, tourism definitely being one. I think there's a huge opportunity for historical tourism. And so that kind of feeds into the culture around New Zealand and 100% pure and all that kind of way is, can we get people to experience New Zealand and its culture to get them to come to New Zealand rather than just waiting until they decide to come here before we get them to enjoy it? So I think there's a whole opportunity around that tourism sector. And there's other ones around sustainability. So New Zealand is going to be the first Western country in the world to legislate sustainability reporting. So that means we have to, as a country, be way ahead of everybody else in having an impact, to get to that net carbon zero. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for us to build stuff here powered by AI and export it to the world. So as we know, software is a weightless export. And so I do a lot of, I'm involved with NZ Tech and most of the subgroups in there to try and really get more and more focus on the economy to get behind software, because it's very minimal in its environmental impact. It is completely exportable and employs a lot of very smart and useful people for the economy. So absolutely, I think there's a lot of opportunity ahead for New Zealand for tech, but especially for AI, including blockchain, to Joaquina's point.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention.
Yeah, we've got a few ideas. So I don't know how you're involved in blockchain, Joaquina. I'd be keen to talk. I think there is a future where machine learning algorithms are actually running on the blockchain, and people can share the benefits of those smart contracts. So yeah, I think there's a whole opportunity around that, and especially in sustainability reporting. So how do we make sure people are not greenwashing their way through the regulation, and how they actually measure what they're doing? So we're working with some IoT companies on energy efficiency and carbon reporting. That should be in the blockchain if people really want to be transparent. So yeah, I think there's definitely opportunities to combine both blockchain and artificial intelligence.
Awesome. Okay, we've managed to go through all the questions, which is amazing, and we are pretty much at time. The webinar has been recorded, so if you know anyone that would be interested in rewatching, or if you know anyone that had to jump off early, I will have this posted up on our YouTube, LinkedIn, and website within the next couple of hours, assuming Zoom has recorded it properly. Who knows now? And then I just had a thank you come through on the Q&A as well. Awesome, amazing. Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your story and your insights into the space. It is very exciting, and I look forward to seeing what happens over the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and who knows into the future. And definitely everyone should check out that conference next year as well. AI
23.
It's not a one, is it? It is
AI23.live.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, AI23.live. Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next webinar. And thank you, of course, to Asa for
Love your work, Lilia. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to all of you getting on the AI journey and helping New Zealand be an awesome place.
Amazing. Cool. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.